Good morning and welcome to our 9th annual State of the Department Grand Rounds. I'm thrilled to have everyone here this morning. I'd like to welcome our visiting or semi-visiting, virtually visiting medical students interviewing for our Grand Rounds. We welcome to the Department of Surgery, and I hope this lecture provides a great introduction for you to the Michael E. DeBakey Department of Surgery. Happy Veterans Day as well, and again, glad that everyone could join us this morning for our talk, which is entitled Department of Surgery 3.0, A New Vista, a somewhat lofty title, which hopefully will make sense as we go through the morning. Disclaimers as usual. Of course, there's a lot to talk about this morning, and I regret that I will not be able to recognize and thank everyone in this department who has contributed, but of course, all are in our thoughts, and appreciation is sincere. My apologies as well for the many images we wish it could show, and time will not allow. As you'll see, we're already quite compact in terms of all the things that we're going to be talking about this morning. Of course, I'm sure I've made some errors during the course of this hour. I will make some errors, and I apologize in advance for those things. And finally, as always, my special thanks to Scott Holmes, our media guru, graphics, magician, not only for the presentation today, Scott, but for your support and help throughout the entire year. A quick overview of our department. As of 2020, we continue to grow. We now represent 16 divisions and sections, 3 new divisions this year that we'll talk about, 2 brand new, bariatrics and trauma and acute care surgery, the third really reborn, if you will, under the leadership of Ramsey Kemp, who joined us this year. 4 new sections that have developed over the last year or two, including breast, colorectal, endocrine, and hepatobiliary under new section leadership, all of whom are doing extremely well. We have 222 faculty members. Importantly, I'm going to spend some time talking about this morning the significant advance and incorporation of our 53 advanced practice provider instructors and assistant professors who are an integral part of our clinical and overall missions as well. 550 faculty, staff, and trainees overall, performing over 30,000 surgical cases and 100,000 patient visits at our 5 primary affiliate hospitals. Case volume distributed, as you can see on the bottom left. We have accrued this year a record extramural funding in excess of $10 million, including $4.3 million in NIH funding. Also a record and today count 146 residents and fellows. All in, we've published over 450 peer review articles, again a record, a recurring theme you'll hear this morning, and we include 9 surgical specialty residencies and 7 fellowship programs as indicated on the bottom right. Our organization is large, as we know. Importantly, I draw your attention to the 4 colored areas, which represent our 4 major mission areas. We're going to be talking a lot about efforts amongst these groups this morning. Our education office, led by Brad Scott, our Vice Chair for Education. Our research program, led by Vice Chair Scott Lemaire, with 55 research staff. Our clinical quality and clinical excellence office, led by our Vice Chair for Clinical Affairs, Bill Fisher. And finally, our outreach, both external and internal program, our newest mission area, led by John Goss, chairs our F.A.P. committee, Faculty Promotions Committee, and our very newest enterprise, our social equity group, led by Dr. Michelle Lohr. Our department, as you see here, has continued to grow over the years, importantly, as I mentioned, including the growth of our APP faculty members, today totaling approximately 220 members. This represents a growth of about 35 faculty in the past 3 years, an average of about 10 per year. Notably, and I think we should all be very proud of our 97% retention rate over the last 3 years and about 30 promotions as indicated there. The distribution of our faculty includes about 2/3 either at Baylor or our 2 major adult affiliates, the Ben Taub Hospital and the Michael E. DeBakey VA, with about 1/3 residing at Texas Children's. Distributions amongst our divisions is shown on the right. As I mentioned, our 2 newest faculty leadership recruits are Dr. Ramsey Kemp and Dr. Mattar. Ramsey joins us from MUSC, having completed his fellowship at MD Anderson to become chief of our Division of Surgical Oncology. Ramsey also is now in a leadership position in the Daniel Duncan Cancer Center and is chairing our Committee on Cancer, which is of great significance in terms of NCI approvals. Dr. Matar arrived over the summer in the height of the pandemic, but has already made significant contributions. Notably, he is a past president of the American Society of Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery and presently serves as the president of the Fellowship Council nationally. Other faculty recruits are depicted here, notably including return of several Baylor alumni, which I think is a fact that we should all be very proud of, including Dr. Vicente Orozco Sevilla, who was one of Dr. Caselli's fellows, briefly lost his way, ended up in Miami, but saw the light and came back and has done a great first year on the aortic and cardiac surgery division service. Also one of our graduating cardiac surgery residents, first in recent memory that we've asked back onto the faculty from our cardiac surgery group, which is a real attribute to Dr. Alex Schutz, is now one of our cardiac surgery faculty at the VA. Julianne Lloyd joins us from UPMC to join our bariatrics group. Natasha Becker back over at the VA after a brief sabbatical on our acute care surgery program. And our very newest recruit arriving this past week, Jesse Yu, who also is at MD Anderson, following on a residency at NYU, and will be a pivotal recruitment to our plastic surgery program. Our vascular surgery group has recruited Dr. Hansraj and Dr. Choi, Dr. Choi also being a returning resident. And finally, the critical care program at the VA, adding Dr. Chand and Dr. Deljoy. Our advanced practice provider group has also grown significantly, as indicated here. I will not go through everyone who are fortunate to join, but importantly, I would mention the very large growth of our acute care surgery APP program, all of whom have come over. An important point in terms of our growth over the last 8 years, which I'm going to spend a moment talking about, is the impact of our recruitment on our improvement or enhancement of the diversity in the Department of Surgery. I'll spend a minute or two on this slide. As you can see, back in 2012, we were a somewhat non-diverse department with 45 out of 100 being white males, 45%, and 24% females. Over the last 8 years, that has changed in going in a far more diverse fashion, I think, to the great betterment of the department, whereas we now represent 36% white males and 32% females, 112% increase the number of women on our faculty. That interestingly has happened, and the most interesting part about it, I think, is this happened organically. It was not a concerted effort per se to engage in diverse recruitment, but I think we can all be gratified that that is what took place. And as you can see here, of that recruitment class, this represents recruited faculty who remain here today, 31% are white male and 36% are female. Now, what's interesting about this is that despite this great increase in diversity, both in terms of our recruitment class and our current composition, we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to be talking about that in the second half of my talk. As I noted at the bottom right, whereas our assistant professor level, the white males constituted 33% of our faculty in 2012, has decreased to 21%. Conversely, 31% women increased to 47%. At the level of professors, the change has only been from 70 to 64% and 7 to 11%, respectively, of course, reflecting the long time it takes to matriculate forward through the advancement process from assistant professor to professor. And we're going to be spending some time talking about the challenges and the opportunities in that regard. As a reflection of our growth, there has been a significant expansion of our Division of General Surgery back in 2013, reflecting 19 faculty members and 5 APPs. Today reflecting 6 divisions constituting 65 faculty, 22 APPs, 6 offices, representative and responsible for 2,800 cases over at St. Luke's. As a consequence, as I mentioned in this past year, we've constituted 3 new divisions, metabolic and bariatric surgery led by Dr. Matar, really built on the foundation of Dr. Holger Haynes' contributions. with 9 APPs and staff, 418 cases, reconstitution of our surgical oncology group under Ramsey Camp, and finally, with expectation of a new chief recruited in the next few months, a new and very exciting trauma and acute care surgery division made up of 21 faculty and 18 APPs. So this growth and how we've adapted to it is an important theme of my comments this morning and is reflected here. Because of this transition, again, I'm going to be talking, we are thrilled, and I think an important step forward in this 3.0 Department of Surgery that Dr. Bill Fisher, prior Chief of General Surgery, has now been elevated to focus on his role as Vice Chair for Clinical Affairs, Clinical Excellence, which I think is going to be a pivotal component of our activities over the next few years. Addition administrative staff listed here. They will not go through in detail other than mention significant additions of Christina Brewer to help lead our research office, great recruits in our education office brought in by Holly Shilstone, and really many of our divisions adding important administrative support and leadership to help us in our growth efforts. A number of promotions have also occurred, of course, over the past year, as indicated here, and a number of important appointments, notably including Dr. Brian Burt, having been named Chief of the Division of General Thoracic Surgery, taking the baton from after the passing of David Sugarbaker and Sean Groth, who joined the division with Brian about 5 years ago, with David Sugarbaker becoming Associate Chief of Cardiac Surgery. Notably also, Sandeep Keswani has been named in the last month Chief of the Division of Pediatric Surgery. We look forward to collaborating with Sandeep, bringing TCH and the adult hospitals closer together, and Alistair Thompson taking on a significant role in the Dan L. Duncan Cancer Center, leading research efforts there. And finally, a number of important appointments in our division of plastic surgery, as indicated on the bottom of the slide. Two other very significant transitions that have occurred over the past year, and again, I think in many ways this reflects how to do it well, and I think this is a tribute both to Dr. Scott, Dr. Maddox. After serving as program director, being affiliated in a leadership of the general surgery program since 2004, Dr. Scott, similar to Dr. Fisher, has elevated to focus on the Vice Chair of Education role, succeeding his program director role to Dr. Gordy, Dr. Stephanie Gordy, and most notably, really of a historic proportions, Dr. Ken Maddox, after 30 years of serving as Chief of Staff for Ben Taub Hospital, and really making that hospital synonymous with trauma and trauma care, and the cutting edge of trauma care, has shortly will be stepping down as Chief of Staff of Ben Taub, but we are fortunate that he will continue to lead as our Associate Vice Chair for Education. Because of these changes in the education organization, we have a new structure, which are depicted here. I'll not go through all of them, but importantly, under the leadership of Dr. Scott and Dr. Gordy as our General Surgery Program Director, we have a very specified roles for our associate program directors, each with a specific mission area of importance. Our global surgery program with Rachel Davis and Jed Nuchtern's leadership, and finally a research track with Dr. Mazzarwe and Dr. Kiswani co-leading this effort. Finally, Dr. Ron Cotton is elevated to the UME director role and is an excellent group of support staff who, again, I think will take our education mission far, as we'll talk about. A number of awards on our faculty level, too many to enumerate here, but of course a number of important editorial board roles, associate editor roles, again, notably Dr. Kiswani being elected into the American Surgical Association, joining about 24 other members of our faculty in the ASA, and other significant awards and accomplishments, as you can review here. Kathy Yao becoming a member of the National Academy of Inventors as one example of national and international accolades, and intramurally excellence awards as indicated here, including those in clinical effort, research, and education as well. Finally, our Women of Excellence Awards, and oddly, Dr. Awad as well in that category. But Sam, in all seriousness, your contributions to our inclusion efforts have been notable as documented here. And also importantly, for the first time this year, we've begun our quarterly teaching awards, interrupted temporarily by the pandemic, but the contributions of Dr. Hoffman on the faculty side and Dr. Scurry on the resident side being celebrated in this recognition, which will be an ongoing component of our support for the education mission. Our students, residents, and staff have also contributed, again, too many to enumerate, but I will mention just yesterday Chris Ryan, who's one of our T32 scholars. Not only is he a Southern Thoracic Surgical scholar, but yesterday in a heavily contested competition going up against many of the cognitive departments, won the award, the Baylor Award for Most Innovative Clinical Project in our Datathon, which again was moderated by our president, Dr. Klopman, and is a very, very significant accomplishment by Chris Ryan, really reflective of the efforts of all of our residents, students, and staff. So with that, let me shift gears and start diving in on some of the accomplishments and challenges and opportunities of our various mission areas, first beginning with healthcare. It has certainly been a challenging year, as illustrated by Dr. Michelle Loers on the walkie-talkie over in our COVID ICU, and more about Michelle and our critical care team and all of our faculty who've been taking care of our COVID patients over the year to come. This, in a way, has been our centenary year of accomplishment on the clinical mission. A number of different programs, in one way or another, have reached the century mark, so to speak. The first of which is our office-based endovascular lab, launched by Dr. Mills and Dr. Montero only a year ago, have now achieved century mark, having performed more than 100 total endovascular procedures in an office-based setting. This is a landmark for Baylor, first ever initiated at our institution, at least in recent memory. And the excellence that Dr. Montero and Dr. Mills and their team, Dr. Pallister, Dr. Chung, have illustrated here, also led by their tremendous clinical staff, really is not only a landmark, but a step forward, not only for our department, but for the entire institution, with more to come, as we'll talk about in a second. The second century mark was achieved by our cardiac surgery group and a transplant group led by Dr. Ken Liao, having in the past 2 years, starting from a dead start, having performed more than 100 robotic open heart procedures or closed heart procedures, including cabbages and valves, as depicted here. This is one of the top 10 programs in the United States. This is you'll hear is a recurring theme in terms of our being top 10 or better. It's the only high volume robotic program in Texas, and the number 2 program in the entire western half of the United States. Ken and his team have accomplished this with 99% operative survival. For those of you who may have encountered a cardiac surgery, often tough enough doing it with a big incision, doing it through a 2-inch incision is quite remarkable, especially with these success rates. Another unique and really trend-setting program led by Dr. Ray Grogan and Sulberg is our transoral thyroid program. This is scarless surgery, so the thyroid is approached surgically through the floor of the mouth. This is in many ways a operation devised and developed by Dr. Grogan and other colleagues around the world. They also have performed over 100 scarless procedures. This is similarly one of 10 high-volume programs in the entire world. Number 2 of 4 in the United States, only program in Texas. And interestingly, remarkably, more than 20% of all cases of scarless thyroid surgery programs have been performed here at Baylor. Truly an incredible benchmark. And finally, the last of our century programs, although there's certainly many, many more programs that we could spend the entire morning talking about, and we've talked about in prior years, our aortic program, our peripheral vascular program, our HPB program, et cetera. Our bariatric surgery program was recognized this past year by the American College of Surgeons in receiving MBS AQUIP accreditation, and most recently receiving a Blue Cross Center of Distinction designation as a top quality program. So congratulations to Dr. Matar, Dr. Holder-Haynes, and Dr. Lloyd on that, as well as Jill Riley, our lead staff member, in taking this program of importance forward. Another milestone, which almost is in the rearview mirror, has been such a tremendous success, has been the recertification of our heart transplant program, which occurred on September 20th. September 2020, led by Dr. Liao, Dr. Shaffi, Dr. Lohr. Since the relaunch of the heart transplant program, the team has performed 44 heart transplants with 100% operative survival. Likewise, under the leadership of Gabe Lohr, we this past year performed a record 53 lung transplants, also with a record 98% one-year survival. As just one example of the excellence of our lung transplant program, depicted on the bottom right was a recently performed COVID-19 lung transplant performed by the lung transplant team. So really a remarkable resurgence of a storied program founded and led for decades by Dr. Bud Frazier, who's here with us this morning. And I'm sure he, as we all, could not be more proud of the accomplishments of our heart and lung transplant programs. I mentioned the OBL program, and this really has been just an absolute astounding success that has been supported by the college as well as the hospital. Building on that success, we look forward under support from Baylor College of Medicine, or Baylor Medicine as well, to expanding these office-based services. And early in our planning right now is an extension of our opportunity to perform a wide variety of minor and office-based procedures in our office setting, sparing our patients the need to go to the hospital. This will be spearheaded by the Department of Surgery, but will be available for all surgical specialties, all departments throughout the college, which again, I think truly reflects the best of the department in leading the way for the entire college. Now, probably under the radar in one sense, but as dramatic a change in our clinical operations as any, has been the complete reorganization of how we run our clinics, and really standing on the head of how we had run our clinical mission for the last 8 years, in that it was very, very top-down. As we learned a couple of years in one of our State of Department talks from General Stanley McChrystal and team of teams, top-down does not work very well when the program becomes too large. And around the turn of the year, we realized that we had a remarkable group of advanced practice providers who really led the way in taking care of our patients in each one of our offices. And on the basis of really seminal contributions and are really leaning on our APPs, we realized it would make far more sense to transition from a top-down management style of our clinics to a bottom-up dyad model where our APPs were really front and center, supporting our faculty and working together with the faculty and our leadership staff in directing our clinical operations on the Baylor Medicine side. So really an extraordinary group of APPs, tremendously dedicated, as we all know, is listed on the top right, a total of 72 FTEs, APPs, and other clinical staff. And again, at the front and center of that dyad model is no longer the division chief or the chair or the department, but is actually the APP. And in this dyad management model, we meet regularly. The APP takes the lead in indicating problems, challenges, opportunities, ways forward. And I think most, if not all, of our divisions and medical directors would agree this has been a remarkable success. Speaking on behalf of the entire faculty, could not be more appreciative of the contributions of our APPs. And I think this new model is really going to be a key element of our step forward in terms of providing clinical excellence. As one example of the lean transformation process that had been led by the APPs across many of our surgical oncology divisions, has been the remarkable identification of problems, challenges, and most importantly, solutions provided by APPs, specifically illustrated in the case on the right in our colorectal surgery program. And then, of course, there was also COVID, and we can't forget that all of this over the last year was, for most of the year, was occurring in the most challenging of environments, and simply as a reflection of some of those, despite the challenges that we faced, we had increases in our quality metrics, our Press Ganey scores, not only because of the efforts of our staff, our faculty, our leadership of under Yvonne Berry and Anu, but really the entire clinical team, including our move from our old offices to the McNair campus. Our institution of COVID telehealth programs, really almost in passing. That's the level of accomplishment done so smoothly. And of course, our support for the college-based COVID testing programs as well. In terms of our affiliates, more really remarkable achievements. And on the Ben Taub side, would note that under the leadership of our trauma director, Chad Wilson, or our general surgery chief, Eric Silberfein, a number of accomplishments, I think perhaps 5 years ago, Dr. Maddox, Chad, I think we probably would have been skeptical about. In opening of new operating rooms, an entire suite, which I think rival anything that can be found anywhere in the country or the world, including 2 hybrid operating rooms used for trauma, and our new TAVR program, entire new OR reception suite. Not taken for granted is our top placement in our TQIP trauma score for 2 years running, really under the spectacular leadership of Chad Wilson. A number of meritorious recognitions is indicated here, not only in terms of TQIP, but our NISQIP rating as well. And finally, we celebrated a 10-year contract renewal with Harris Health with Baylor College of Medicine, reflecting our renewed and critical pivotal relationship with one of the top municipal hospitals in the country. Texas Children's and Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center, likewise, our 2 major other affiliates go without saying, but we'll detail briefly here numerous accomplishments, both in terms of volume, #1 status, heart surgery program indicated here on the top right, performing a record 1,075 heart surgery cases. Our VA Medical Center, the biggest and the best, literally and figuratively as well, innumerable categories this year, moving forward with the opening of both of a VAD and one of the only 4 heart transplant programs at a VA in the United States. So again, things around here we take for granted, but cannot be minimized as dramatic and truly incredible accomplishments. So let me shift gears again and talk about our education program, which again has hit innumerable high marks. This year, our thoracic integrated I-6 program was approved, and in its first year received 130 applicants we will be looking at shortly. Likewise, our vascular integrated program had a record 130 applicants this year. Our general surgery program, for our applicants on the phone, do not be overly alarmed because all of this is in the rear view mirror for you. But of 1,750 applicants, we are today and over the next several weeks interviewing 100, 250 plus of whom had USMLE scores in the top 15% nationally. On the basis of this growth and improvement, we plan to move forward petitioning for a 10th categorical position. So we'll have 4 clinical, 5 research, and 1 global surgery position. And as depicted on this slide, we continue to excel in terms of our ABSITE scores, our resident surveys on our ACGME survey in terms of the reflections of the program, and I'll speak about this in a second, and in terms of the research accomplishments of our residents and being top 3 the second year in a row at the Academic Surgical Congress. More about that as well to follow. So one of the greatest challenges we've had as we've matured as a department, of course, is making sure we're treating our residents as learners and partners and not merely here to take care of our clinical needs. And I think as depicted on the bottom left and middle bottom of this slide, I think it's a real tribute to our faculty, our leadership, and our residents as well, the very, very dramatic multi-year improvements in critical issues such as fear of retribution, supervision, self-evaluation, and our overall approval scores. In the middle column, you can see just in the past year, we've exceeded national standards by at least 5% in half a dozen metrics, and we see continued improvement across the board. So very, very healthy, I think, very encouraging metrics that I think we also can be tremendously proud of. Especially in these COVID times, we continue to innovate. And as depicted here, 3 brand new programs were initiated this year. Under the leadership of Eric Silverfine, we began our Chalk Talk series. One of the concerns of our residents is lack of exposure because of constricted case availability related to COVID. So we said, well, why spend a lot of time? What is the key to being in the operating room and taking care of patients and seeing the rare event? We're fortunate, of course, in our department to have innumerable master surgeons, and over the last 3 sessions now, we've had experts such as Dr. Maddox, Dr. Scott, Dr. Fisher, Dr. Goss, others, talk about those 1 in 100 things that no one wants to see, but you sure want to know from an expert how to get out of trouble. And this has been incredibly well received by our residents, and thrilled to do it. Bring this on, and I think it'll be a mainstay of our education program. Likewise, under the leadership of Mario Vera, this past week we had our first movie night. Another element of what's important to our residents is really subliminal. Where do you stand? Where am I? How am I doing? We realize that one of the elements of being in the operating room or not being able to get into the operating room is being able to compare notes and see how you're performing technically compared to peers. So in a de-identified fashion, Dr. Vera put together a number of videos looking at a standard operation, a laparoscopic appendectomy. We were able to have a movie night comparing, looking in a de-identified, no-pressure fashion, various operative techniques or performance, sort of the University of Michigan model. And again, I think this was very, very well received as a way of level setting in a non-pressurized fashion our resident performances. And finally, under the leadership of this year of Lisa Brubaker and Dr. Okiki, taking the reign from Eric Racklin, prior year, a resident handbook is in its 3rd edition, now with the additional complement of online searchable videos, similar to our movie night, and a searchable library of pearls and the like in terms of didactic learning. Another element of our innovation in education includes really a markedly revamped M&M format that includes an analysis of human performance deficiency so we can categorize how we can do better and de-stress the elements of this is not about someone doing something wrong, it's about challenges of human performance and how we can learn from that. Likewise, our ABSITE Pearls are a way of residents sharing with each other the key teaching points from our M&M conferences. Again, reflective of the research efforts of our residents, you can see the dramatic increase under the leadership of Scott Lemaire of our Research Day abstract submissions from resident students this past year, reaching a record 150. Our resident council really has stood up this year as a way of integrating resident input in terms of performance improvement of our education programs overall. And finally, as a way, and this is sort of the secret sauce of how we help support our residents, our clinical competency committee is now introducing heat map scorecards so we can carefully track and register the progress of our residents and with appropriate mentorship help them along their educational pathway. Take a moment to talk about our global surgery program, truly one of a kind and truly the gem, one of the gems of our education mission overall. Conceived of and developed 6 or 7 years ago now by one of our residents, Rachel Davis, really taking the lead and only supported by the department. Really, our residents were at point on this. This has now become the only or remains the only NRMP-listed global surgery program in the U.S. We have 6 residents. We'll be matching our 7th residents this year, entering into a unique program where the PGY 3-year is spent both locally and around the world developing critical skills needed to practice global surgery, and then the PGY 7-year as a fully trained physician being able to go out and provide significant help. Really, an entire day's worth of a discussion could be centered around our global surgery program. But the key point is that this has been led by our residents, developed by our residents, and really innovated in a way that is truly trend-setting internationally, and is really in many ways already received international acclaim for the efforts of this program. So my thanks on behalf of the department to Dr. Davis, Dr. Vu, and all of our other global surgery track residents, Jed Nuckturn and Chad Wilson, in terms of their help and support of this program that is truly singular and a source of great pride for our department. And finally, again, of course, in these COVID times, we are trying to adapt and advance and make sure that we are reaching out to our community, and several examples of how we're doing that, including, again, to reassure and connect our residents to the rest of our world. We've, over the last 6 months, with Holly Shiltone's guidance, collected a series of alumni testimonials about what happens after you graduate our program and how well prepared are you. These are available now on our website and online, and I think all of our residents and candidates on the line will find these very reassuring confirmations of the quality and excellence of our teaching program here in the Department of Surgery. And last, but certainly not least, and probably, quite frankly, the most severe adversely affected of all of our categories of learners have been our students. COVID and restrictions have made it very difficult, but under Ron Cotton and Dr. Gordy's leadership, we have been able to continue improving our UME program, as shown on our metrics on the top right, and perhaps notably reflected in our record number of 16 Baylor students who are applying for general surgery or other surgical specialty programs in this current year. Truly, I think, a reflection of the role modeling, mentorship, and leadership of our faculty and our staff in highlighting surgery as an outstanding way of engaging as a physician. Turning to our research mission, again, record-breaking, exceeding $10 million in total extramural funding, including $4.3 million in NIH funding, $6 million in total federal funding, as depicted here. This is on the foundation of a record 120 grant proposals submitted this past year through our Office of Surgical Research, led by Dr. Barbara Troutner, now constituted of 55 staff, grant managers, clinical research coordinators, and the like, supporting our faculty and residents in their grant and research efforts. Record number of managed grants managed this past year is shown on the bottom right, bottom left, as well as a record number of publications. And notably, as I mentioned before, for the second year in a row, one of the top 3, behind only University of Alabama, University of Michigan, in terms of abstracts, typically resident abstracts, submitted to the Academic Surgical Congress. A key part of our research program, the support for researchers, are a seed grant program. Depicted here, I won't go through this in great detail other than to mention our 2020 recipients, both in the Division of Thoracic Surgery and also notably our new cardiovascular, well, not quite so new now in its third year, T32 program in cardiovascular, with soon hopefully to be a second T32 led by Dr. Fisher and Dr. Camp and Dr. Yao in surgical oncology. The return on investment of our seed grant program has been dramatic, $340,000 invested over the past 7 years in our seed grant program, with nearly a $2.4 million return on investment, over 700% in terms of grants received. Truly a remarkable program, and my thanks on behalf of the department for Scott Lemaire for his leadership of this effort. Finally, in terms of innovation in our research effort is a number of very exciting initiatives, including our SHARE program, which is in collaboration with I-Quest, one of the leading health services research programs in the country. Our surgical incubator program, which takes ideas into and innovation into patentable, commercializable elements, that is, includes 53 invention disclosures only since 2018. And finally, in this past year, the launch of our internal surgery grant review program, which in the past year, only since March 2020, has reviewed 35 grants, of which 3 have been funded or have fundable scores. Truly a remarkable accomplishment, and I think a great success story going forward. The translation of this have been some of these key big-ticket grants, so to speak, that you'll see here. Notably, Dr. Nayak Mathuria receiving a CDC grant, one of a precedent-setting collection to look at firearms control. This is through the CDC and is really a landmark event in terms of research and gun control. And a total in this past year of $18 million in new grants, truly a remarkable accomplishments. In terms of publications, a number of high-impact publications noted here, and several textbooks, including Dr. Maddox's editorial contributions both to a new edition of Sabiston as well as his own trauma textbook, and then Dr. Groth and Bert's help in completing Dr. Sugarbaker's third edition of adult chest surgery. A significant number of COVID publications as well, including, I think, landmark papers on transplant cardiac surgery and some of the early work led by one of our residents, Jared Mortis, in terms of identifying at a very early stage of this syndrome of the hypercoagulable component of COVID. Putting all this together is the outreach in terms of making sure we are messaging this properly, and again, some exciting benchmarks in this regard. We are #1 for departments of surgery on Facebook, #6 in terms of Twitter access with over 4,000 followers in each categories, and a number of new arrivals in terms of our divisions individually, residents as well, becoming involved in Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. This year also noted the launch of The Stitch, which is our blog. We are the only department at the college with our own blog site, which was a significant hurdle to achieve, and my thanks to Debbie Sugarbaker for leading this effort. We now have over 13,000 views of over 20 blogs, and on behalf of the Communications Committee, I would encourage all to become involved in this effort. Likewise, our website was renovated and relaunched this year and now enjoys, as recently as September, a record 9,000 page views. This is all put together through Scott Holmes' leadership in a variety of different ways, this example featuring Scott Lemaire, and through one story, this being one of Dr. Lemaire's publications and is being named chair of the National Library of Medicine Literature Committee. We were able to generate over 12,000 views through a variety of our accesses, and a great way for us to reach out nationally to our peers. Likewise, this involves marketing of our clinical programs, and is depicted here. We took Dr. Grogan's 100 transoral procedure and Dr. Liao's 100 robotic procedures. We're able to market these, reaching out to our community in a number of different ways, including television appearances, Google search, business cards, and webinars, both of which were well attended. Finally, our CME committee, CME meetings continue under Susan Ressler's leadership with hundreds of viewers, not in person, but online, and really have expanded to be international reach, highlighting some of our specialty efforts and programs in a way that allows us to access the worldwide community in ways that were not probably even conceivable before. Our internal outreach sounds like an oxymoron, but I think is as important as communicating with the outside world is how we communicate with each other. And this is really an effort that has been led by Dr. Michelle Lohr, who in the fall of 2019 came and talked about our need to understand our social equity in our department better. And Michelle has done a phenomenal effort founding and directing our Social Equity Committee, which is a semi-independent component of our department, really self-directed, but executed with the department's support. And I'll give you a number of examples of the tremendous work of the Social Equity Committee, their goals and mission action items depicted here. As one example, really what formed the Social Equity Committee is concerned that perhaps there was gender bias or gender discrimination in terms of compensation and promotion in a way that I think reflects the very best of our transparency. We did an analysis led by Paul Bristol, our administrator, looking at both of these questions together with Renetta Etter. And fortunately, we found that, in fact, with the rarest of exceptions that were disparate, we actually did have a good equity, both in terms of our compensation levels for gender as well as our promotion. Certainly work to be done, but an encouraging sign that without this light of day really would have been misinterpreted. And again, it shows the tremendous power of transparency. Likewise, in probably a great example of implicit bias, if you went back and looked at our grand round schedules over the years, there was a dearth of women and underrepresented minorities presenting. And again, under Dr. Luhr's leadership, we've dramatically corrected that. We're also participating with the college in putting forth inclusion ambassadors to help integrate our efforts within the department with those of the college. Perhaps one of the most dramatic moments, and really for all of us who are involved in this, heart-wrenching moments, was with the graciousness of Chad Wilson, our webinar in June 17th of this year, a webinar with Chad's cousin, Robbie Tolan, who is a victim of police violence. And I think that webinar really was a moment of great clarity and awareness for many of us in terms of the challenges members of our community face. And I think truly a pivotal event, both for not only for our Social Equity Committee, but really for our entire department. I would thank Dr. Wilson again for his courage and his compassion in sharing this story of his cousin with the entire department. For those who would like to see this video, it is also available online on our computer. Digging further, despite really looking at challenging questions with facts and data, Dr. Luhr and the Social Equity Committee launched a survey in the last several months, which had a 57% response rate. Notwithstanding the fact that as recently as last year, our AAMC survey reported 84% satisfaction rate, this survey identified real challenges that we face. And by way of example, 46%, 40 to 50% of our faculty felt that there was a bias, either on the basis of gender or ethnicity, in terms of equal opportunity access to academic appointments or leadership roles. And only 40% of our faculty felt that there were no barriers to promotion. So clearly, despite our many successes, much work to be done. On a positive note, the flip side, the collegiality and the collaboration that the survey respondents found in our department, 60% and 60% of the cases, as well as our reputation, were the reasons why they came here. And importantly, after they arrived here, the reasons why we and they are staying. So a very, very strong foundation, but I think the converse side with Dr. Luhr's leadership and the Social Equity Committee, a lot that can be done, and look forward to their progress over the year. Likewise, in terms of already addressing some of the challenges in terms of promotion, Dr. Goss with Renetta Etter's support are taking on new challenges in terms of creating a promotion dashboard so all of our faculty can better understand where they stand in terms of the promotion pathway, and a renewed focus on sponsorship. So many of us are, all of us, I believe, are supportive of our junior faculty and residents and the like in creating opportunities for their advancement. But in this initiative that will be led by our Faculty Promotions Committee, a renewed focus on how we best can help bring along all of our colleagues within the department. And finally, as I mentioned in the beginning, our APPs have really, we've taken on a renewed focus on making them key members of our department. And under the leadership of Holly Clayton, our APP committee, as depicted here, have taken tremendous strides in integrating our APPs as full-fledged members of our department, including opportunities for their own promotion. And finally, likewise, our clinical staff committee represents the coalesced voice of our MAs, our technicians, our nurses, our schedulers, our other clinical staff, to make sure that they too are key members of our department enterprise with a full voice and engagement in those efforts. Of course, without the right tools, it's difficult to know how to move forward. And this past year, we also began a very intriguing, I think, leadership seminar series that began a full year ago when many of us took our emotional IQ Some of us might have been a bit surprised where our emotional IQ actually stood, but I think all of us learned a bit from this assessment, led by Holly Thompson, an outside consultant, as well as Melanie Jagno, our ombudsman, and Nancy Marino, who's now chair of the Department of Education. These series continued and will continue with a series of other seminars that include crisis management, giving and receiving feedback just a few weeks ago. And moving forward, we're going to have resident faculty-led case series where we look at opportunities for developing leadership through fumbles and challenges that each of us face on a daily basis. Financial performance, again, we're fortunate to have our COO, Joe Doty, in the audience today. Financial performance in the year of COVID has been quite an interesting experience, and I think we owe a debt of thanks to our college for really supporting our efforts through this challenging year. Depicted on the left is the resurgence of our case volume, which has been very gratifying. On the right is our contribution margin, which how the department gets judged financially. And the good news is although we did not meet budget and we did not exceed our prior contribution margins, which you can see have been growing each year, we did end up with a positive margin, which I think was appreciated by the college, certainly gratifying for us. So with all of that said, where do we stand? What does 3.0 really mean, at least to me? And I think this all begins with what, of course, is the storied legacy of our department, beginning with the arrival of Dr. DeBakey in 1947, 1948. And we know the story, and as depicted here, this truly is a department of historic and landmark accomplishments that extended for generations. It is a tremendous legacy that I think each and every one of us are tremendously proud of. I think that is the 1.0 version of the Michael E. DeBakey Department of Surgery. I would say, perhaps immodestly, I think the 2.0 version is the journey that we've all been on for the last 8 years, as are reflected in some of these State of the Department talks that we've given over the past 8 years. And I think we've been through thick and thin. We've been through Harvey. We've been through this past year. And along the way, we've learned to work together and collaborate and become a department that supports and takes care of each other. And I think for most of us, hopefully all of us, it truly has been, certainly for me, a remarkable journey. That journey has included our bringing in leaders from around the country and around the world, have really represented the best and brightest, I think, of medicine and surgery, and have really been responsible, been the foundation and the backs upon which we have really moved forward over these past 8 years. That moving forward in many ways reflects the change of a department that in 2012, really in some extent in the DeBakey model, Dr. Caselli, when I first met him, reminded me that he might do a thoracoabdominal aneurysm in the morning and then maybe a colon resection in the afternoon and top it off with a gallbladder in classic DeBakey style. That actually worked pretty well, I would say, Department of Surgery 1.0. But really over the last 8 years, with support of great leaders like Dr. Caselli, we've been able to recruit experts and champions from around the country and the world. And today, I think, represent a fully formed, modern Department of Surgery with subspecializations and expertise in a broad portfolio of surgical excellence as reflected in this slide. Along the way, as I've also mentioned, we have grown as a department. I hope everyone agrees in terms of having a just culture, a culture where we all support each other, perhaps no better reflected in our trials and challenges of this past COVID year, and as reflected in this inaugural COVID Heroes series of awards, recognizing and celebrating the selfless contributions of our true heroes who ask for no recognition and only contribute because they want to help friends and those around them. That truly is who I think we represent as a college and a department. This growth and journey along 2.0 today, as we know, reflects our move from our old home over here on Main Street and Fannin Street to beautiful new facilities over at McNair. and soon to be even newer facilities, as shown here in our new O'Quinn building under construction, where some of us will be moving as early as February of 23. So looking back on 2.0, there is a tremendous number of accomplishments that I think we can all be proud of. Everything from our historic record-setting thoracoabdominal accomplishments of Dr. Caselli to the internationally recognized Wi-Fi scoring system of Dr. Mills, to being #1 in TQIP, and the efforts of our Ben Taub group, to the dramatic expansion of our robotics program led by Christy Chai and others. Going across the board, really, I think it's been 8 years that we can all take some great pride in. Truly, we can pat ourselves on the back, but I think obviously the real reflection of that success is the consideration of our peers. As we announced this year, we have risen from an inaugural score of 15 to this past year to a rank of 13th in U.S. News and Report. And importantly, this is a reputational score as assayed or surveyed by medical school deans and other academic leader by U.S. News, and certainly in a very good company there in the top 13, joining the ranks of Hopkins, Harvard, Duke, Michigan, Penn, WashU, Stanford, UCLA, Columbia, Mayo, and then Baylor. So good company, but I think we can go even further. So how do we get to Department of Surgery 3.0? Over the last 2 months, we've convened a series of retreats, begun by SWOT analyses, looking at where we are, what our strengths and weaknesses were, and through the leadership of our vice chairs, beginning with Dr. Fisher, we had a series of retreats. I will not enumerate all of the action items coming out of those retreats, but clearly reflective of a vision that will take us to the very top ranks of departments of surgery. Our research effort, as well as our clinical effort, likewise reflects a highly innovative, highly challenge-setting opportunity to really contribute in ways that's reflective of the legacy of DeBakey and Department of Surgery 1.0. Just this past week, we had our education retreat. Again, a very, very aspirational and challenging sets of challenges set forth by ourselves to take our mission, education mission, as our other mission programs to the next level, to be followed soon by our outreach retreat as well. So on the basis of these recommendations, the Department of Surgery really is reorganizing in a very dramatic way. And the foundation of our steps forward will be 4 new or renovated offices of mission specificity, the first being our Office of Clinical Excellence, led by Dr. Bill Fisher, with the goal of really becoming the Mayo of the South, or as some have said, making sure that Mayo is the Baylor of the North, as we reimagine and reconsider how we can provide the very best of clinical care to our patients. Under Dr. Scott Lemaire's leadership, Christina Brewer, Barbara Troutner, Deb Sermon, really our research programs, likewise, our goal is to be one of the very best around the country, with a focus both on basic translational health services research and research education as well. Our Office of Education under Brad Scott's leadership, working with our director, Holly Shilstone. Likewise, the goal with our associate program directors to really be at the very cutting edge of providing education and training to our learners across all specialties in the department. And finally, and perhaps in some ways, the most unique, are outreach efforts, both internal and external, making sure not only we are a department of accomplishment, but we're a department of diversity, inclusion, and really the collegiality that has, I think, in many ways been the very best characteristic of the department over the last decade. Finally, bringing this all together, we will, it is my goal over the next year to work with our mission leaders and break down the silos, so we're not talking about education and research separately, or the VA or Ben Taub or St. Luke separately, but really coalescing this into a mission council. We're all talking with each other, comparing notes and learning from each other, and taking all of these missions forward in a way that will inevitably help us be and maintain our leadership as one of the premier departments of surgery in the country. The goals are lofty, but I really do believe that with our leadership and our faculty, our department, and our staff, they will be easily achievable. And recapitulating those concepts to really have the very best clinical quality that is available anywhere, to be one of the top 20 at the very least in terms of our research efforts, to have a premier training program that would be the envy and the model for all those around us, and finally to have truly integrated outreach and internal outreach to make sure we're all supporting each other in ways that makes this our second home. So I'm borrowing this slide a bit from Dr. Eric Silberfein, who has, I noted, started talking about the pillars of the programs over at Ben Taub, and if 3, which is what Eric was using, was good enough for Ben Taub, I thought 5 would be good enough for the Department of Surgery. So I would propose, reflective of where we are, these 5 pillars that would be our core values: transparency to build trust, fairness to build confidence, responsibility to build teamwork, accountability to build collaboration, and ownership to build execution, reflective of many of the themes and topics that we've talked about over the last 8 years, and ultimately these 5 pillars to build the inspiration that will fuel the future successes of our department. So with that, as always, I thank the department. I thank all of you in this room and on Zoom for your support, for your commitment, for everything that we all do for each other, and wish everyone a great interview day and a great new year. Thank you all.